Right. Perfect. I can see a lot of people are joining the session here and already have, so I think we can get going with things. First of all, I wanted to start with saying good afternoon to everyone joining. My name is Anton Holmgren. I'm an enterprise account executive here at Rocket.Chat, and we're very excited to talk a little bit more today about safe and legal digital collaboration for the Nordic public sector. I'm joined by a great set of panelists and co-hosts today, including my technical counterpart here at Rocket.Chat, Marwan Bentaleb. He is one of our solution engineers, and he will be walking us through the live demo later on in the session as well. We also have Michael Witten joining us. He's the VP of Sales for Northern Europe at Pexip. And finally, we also have the pleasure of having Michael Görög with us. He is the co-founder and head of business development at Collaboard. Before we move forward with things, I also wanted to state that we would like this to be as an engaging session as possible. So you do have a button down in the right-hand corner, I believe, where you can pose any type of questions. So feel free to do that throughout the webinar, and we will do our best to answer them, hopefully live during this session, or alternatively follow up with more detailed answers if we don't have enough time today. As you can see, we're also recording the session, so we will be following up with a recorded version for you after today's webinar too. Right, before we move in, let's just switch slide here. Before we dive into a bit more of the sort of finer details of what we're going to discuss, I quickly just wanted to highlight a bit of the agenda for today. We are going to start off with speaking a little bit more in terms of the shift in the digital landscape that we're seeing as it relates to having compliant and safe digital collaboration tools, and also relate back to the fact that this is very much driven by some of the different regulations that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, and the need for more data sovereign and secure and compliant solutions. We also want to talk a little bit more how we see a lot of requests for having unified platforms across chat, audio, video, file sharing, and whiteboarding, and how having flexible deployment options and being in full control of all of this data as well is very critical in terms to be compliant with a couple of the different regulations and security requirements that we will be touching more on shortly here as well. Then we also want to highlight a little bit more about the specific partnership that Rocket.Chat, Collaboard, and Pexip have together. That is purpose-built for the public sector. That is really the sort of core industry that the three of our organizations are focusing on as well. So we're happy to talk a little bit more about the partnership and how we have built a natively integrated solution for this as well. We have had quite a lot of success over the last couple of months and quarters, I would say, and we're going to highlight a couple of specific use cases that we're helping address. We are going to touch a little bit more on a specific Swedish government agency that are currently in the process of replacing Skype for Business with our combined solution for this as well, that we're excited to cover in a bit more detail. And then to sort of finalize things as well, I will hand it over to Marwan, as I mentioned earlier, to do a live demo of the actual solution for everyone to get a better sort of look and feel of it. And we're also going to try and address some of the different use cases that we're hearing a lot about from our side as well. Perfect. So we wanted to start off with addressing a little bit of how we see public sector organizations addressing the new sort of digital landscape and how they address some of the risks that are associated with certain type of solutions as well. I think, talking specifically about the Nordics, but I do think this is applicable for other regions in Europe and more on a global scale as well. We have really seen a rise in regulatory demands over the last couple of years, as I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with from before as well. We have been sort of all working in various type of ways of being GDPR compliant for privacy reasons, and we also have new mandates coming out, for instance, NIS2, which puts sort of a lot of emphasis and importance in terms of managing data in a correct and secure way as well. So I think we can all agree that we've sort of seen a rise in various type of regulatory demands over the last couple of years, which have put sort of self-hosted and data sovereign solution as a very sort of hot topic that a lot of companies are trying to address. And I would say in sort of where we are sitting right now as well, this is not only maybe driven by a rise in regulatory demands, but we've also seen sort of an increased geopolitical instability across Europe in the Nordic region as well. And we've also seen a rise in sabotage against critical infrastructure and so on, which once again have led various type of organizations to reassess their digital infrastructure and really put compliance and security as a top priority. We're also seeing end of some older legacy systems. I think most of you probably are familiar with Skype for Business from before and the current version going end of life later on this year in October as well. At least speaking for the Nordic sector, we've probably seen Skype being the primary self-hosted collaboration tool over the last 10 to 15 years. And of course, organizations have been looking at ways of adopting more cloud-based solutions, but there have been pushback for various reasons, a lot of that related to GDPR, being able to make sure and guarantee that you can keep all data within the European Union and your own respective countries as well. So I think the fact that we're sort of seeing Skype coming up to a couple of different changes here ahead, with some of the challenges for adopting cloud-based solutions for the public sector, put a lot of these organizations in a scenario where they are once again reassessing a little bit how to approach this topic and trying to really find a unified collaboration tool where that is considered legal and safe, but that obviously doesn't compromise on the usability and sort of the happiness from the end users of the platform as well. I think we're also seeing, especially maybe across large organizations, that there still is a bit of a risk of fragmented tools. Shadow IT is probably a term that many of you are familiar with from before as well. And although we often work with organizations that might be standardizing on 1, 2, or 3 different digital collaboration tools, there is also a lot of sort of tools maybe hidden underneath there as well that can be hard for central IT to sort of manage in a proper way as well. So that is one of the sort of other parts as well that we're trying to address and really help customers with implementing and evaluating unified collaboration tools that we're going to go into a little bit more in details here in a slide or two as well. So just quickly wanted to highlight couple of the different sort of key trends that we're seeing in terms of this. Obviously, you can spend a lot more sort of diving into each and every topic of it as well. But I could imagine that this is probably quite familiar for a lot of the people joining today's webinar as well. Moving forward, we said we're going to try and make this an engaging session. So we're going to have a couple of different polls as well here. The first one asking around how you're addressing data sovereignty requirements, which we see being a very sort of big priority for now. I'll give a couple of seconds here for everyone to have a chance to fill in their poll as well. Right, perfect. I think we can work on sharing some more information about these polls, maybe towards the end of the webinar, or as a follow-up after as well, where we can share a bit more of the results. As you know, this is very much focused on the public sector. So we have a lot of people joining from various government agencies across the Nordics and Europe. So I'm sure it will be relevant for all of you to understand how others are thinking about this as well. But let's move on a bit. And from here on, we also wanted to touch a little bit. We're going to speak obviously a bit more in terms of what we're seeing organizations focusing on, but we also wanted to have a chance of including a couple of my colleagues to maybe address this a little bit from their perspective. I wanted to start off with bringing in Michael Whitham on this topic, joining us from Pexip. Pexip, as a lot of you probably are familiar with from before, have been working towards the public sector organizations and for highly sort of security and privacy concerned organizations for a long time. So it'd be very interesting, Michael, to maybe understand a little bit more from your perspective, how you see it at Pexip, that different organizations are trying to address data sovereign solutions, especially as it relates to secure collaboration.
Absolutely. And firstly, thank you very much for letting me join today, and for so many of you participating and investing your time in today's webinar. I think in order to address what we see as some of the trends and the shifts towards sovereignty, it's important to look back and understand what actually got us to this point of time. And realistically, I think one of the things that led us to where we currently are is the pandemic and what you referenced earlier around shadow IT. You know, suddenly what we saw was that countries needed to digitalize their services, healthcare, food deliveries, etc., within the space of 2 weeks, and collaboration tools were a key foundation towards that. I think we're now in that phase now where organizations can reflect and actually take the time on what technologies are they using and how do they fit their company's purposes and how safe are they to use. Samverka, which is a group of public bodies that actually started in Sweden, took a great step towards this, and they provided a framework of technology that didn't rely on American giants and cloud services, mainly with the purpose to drive operational sovereignty and to deliver modern UC platforms. I think after speaking with many customers for a series of years, one of the things that we feel and understand is a big frustration is that compliance and regulation is really feeling like a moving target. It's definitely a moving target when it comes to complexity and how to understand what you're allowed to use and what you're not allowed to use. I think what we've seen as well is that some organizations have interpreted regulation and compliance in different ways. So we've seen some organizations that have relied on the EU-US data adequacy decision, for example, as a safe framework for utilization. Unfortunately, now this seems to be in jeopardy after the recent election in the US and recent events as well. So there's a lot of uncertainty around how long this will reside and if it actually provides a framework to be used. I think what we've seen as well is that some have shifted under the US-EU adequacy decision to actually using Microsoft Teams, but they've restricted the functionality of what they can use inside of the organizations as well, which has kind of deemed the technology to some regards ineffective. So I think across the shift, what we see is that there's a variety of challenges, and hopefully that gives you some summary around how we've understood this over the last few years that we've been working with our customers on these challenges.
Yeah, no, I can definitely relate to that from Rocket.Chat side, and also be interesting to hear a bit more from you, Michael Görug, from Collaboard side as well. Are you seeing similar things to what Michael just discussed as well, or what are your thoughts on this, and how do you see different organizations addressing this need for data sovereign platforms where you have full control of your data?
Yeah, when we talk to customers, we also see similar things. So we have the pandemic as an initial event to do things more digital. And especially in the whiteboard area, we have seen that in many organizations, which are still very fragmented today, so they're often operate in silos, one silo started with this solution, another silo with that one. So there was a multitude of solutions for collaboration, and there wasn't, let's say, one tool to serve this need. And we have seen a few years ago, we had some early adopters who started with Collaboard on premise. So they already went into this approach saying, okay, we want to have one solution that is approved. And also we have a solution where the people don't need to think 10 times about which kind of data they can put into the solution, because if they are using one of the US cloud-based applications, then as Michael said before, it's often very restricted. So you don't know if you upload this kind of data, if you're with one foot in the jail yet or not, right? So this is something we see here. So the companies now, or the organization now, start to think about how to consolidate these tools and how to get to a solution or a stack of solutions that really fulfills their needs from a legal point of view, but always keep in mind also the users, right? Because it doesn't make sense to have a fully compliant solution if the user don't like it. So this needs to go hand in hand. And maybe one other thought on that as well is at the moment we also have this war of talents, right? So it's difficult to find good people, and public sector organizations are also part of that. So they are looking now about for strategies how to implement the modern workplace to be an attractive employer, right? So this is also something we see, and one of the solution is either going to a self-hosted on-prem solution or using one of the tools hosted in a sovereign data center somewhere in Europe, in Sweden, in the Nordics, or wherever.
That's great. Thanks for that feedback, Michael.
Then I'd like to take the opportunity to talk about our view towards self-hosted, and particularly in a lot of discussions that I have with my customers around how do they actually guarantee control of the communication platforms that they're building their organizations on. For me, self-hosted is, I kind of like to think of the analogy or the metaphor around the difference between owning your own house and renting your own house. When you own your own house, you have the control. So, for example, if you want to change the color of the wallpaper within the house, that's under your control. But you can also do a lot more things there as well. So if you wanted to build a pool in the basement or in the garden, that's also something that gives you have the control to do so. As we've touched on when we talked about shadow IT, is that one of the biggest challenges that we see for organizations that are mandating the use of sovereign collaboration solutions is the use of incorrect software. And we saw this grow exponentially during the pandemic. And I think now that we're returning to this requirement where we're mandating to users to use the correct software, we've got to work with the users, as Michael talked about, and understand, is this the correct solution for their use case? And how do we bring best value to them? And that means that we need to work on adoption plans towards them. I think as we've understood, working with a foreign cloud provider is very complex. So I challenge my customers, do you understand all of the terms and conditions that you've actually signed up to? Can you even show me them? Because they're typically hidden in various hundreds of pages of documentation as well. And this really points back to when you own your own house, you have your own control, you have your own operational sovereignty. And I think just to wrap this up, this really means that, you know, perhaps in Sweden or Scandinavia, if you're going to let people enter your house, you can choose whether they're going to have their shoes on or not as well. And by mandating and working with the users, you can actually control the utilization of inappropriate software. You can create the correct processes within your organization for how you want to handle the data and how you want to have full control and visibility on the data as well. So we see this as the most recommended way to move forward. Yeah, own your own house. And I think, Marwan, you're going to talk to us next around, sorry, Michael, you're going to talk to us about why we actually work together.
Yeah, exactly. So this was one of the questions when we prepared the webinar. We asked ourselves, okay, why are we here today, or why are we doing that? And looking back a little bit into the past, it's because of some of the customers. So maybe some of them are already here in the webinar today, but we as Collaboard, Pexip, and Rocket.Chat, we didn't have the idea, okay, let's bring the solution together. So it was really customer driven. They said, okay, we're using now Rocket.Chat for chat. We're using Pexip for video and Collaboard for whiteboarding, but they are somehow a standalone solution. So let's talk to the vendors and let's think on how to integrate, always with the goal to create a more frictionless collaborative experience. So there was a market gap for that. So there weren't a lot of there weren't even one on-prem solution that really covered everything. So we thought, okay, how cool would it be to make a seamless experience for the end user, having all these three ways of working together with chat, video, and whiteboarding in one solution. So this is why we came together. So thanks to the customers who initiated that. And we share similar missions. So all of our organizations have the mission to provide the most secure collaboration experience to the end customer. And this is how we do it with a self-hosted solution, with relying also on partners who are hosting our solutions in a very secure environment. And that's maybe the reason why we are here today, and maybe the reason why you're here today is to see the demo. So I will hand over to Maruana, and then I think we will start soon showing how the solution works together.
Just before we jump to that, one of the things that we're going to talk about is the actual proof points of when the technology is being combined and delivered to end customers as well. So whilst we have a variety of different customers that we're supporting across Northern Europe, but also globally with a combination of our technology offerings as an integrated solution, here is an example of a Swedish government agency which needed to replace Skype for Business. And they're currently in the process of doing this for 7,000 employees to enable them to collaborate securely across the organization. I think one of the things that excites me the most about this customer is that the existing Skype for Business solution couldn't support them in fully digitalizing all of their services that they enable. And this is what they can do now with a modern collaboration platform. And the variety around how this public organization is working is across the scope as well. So they're doing everything from digitalizing citizen services to enabling business licenses and permits within their organization, even towards maintaining the national parks across Sweden as well. So we're incredibly excited about what this will deliver. And Anton, I know you've worked also alongside this customer as well. So you've got some use cases that you're excited to see as it moves forward.
Indeed. Yeah, no, I think you summarized it quite well already. Maybe this particular agency was sort of one step ahead in terms of some of the other organizations we're speaking with in certain ways. So first of all, a great and very competent team to work with on this specific topic. But as we touched on a little bit, they were in a scenario that a lot of other ones in the Nordics have been finding themselves in, where they had been standardizing on Skype for Business for God knows how many years, and we're sort of looking at ways of how to modernize their tech stack, specifically related to having a sort of solid digital collaboration tool in place as well. So just like most others that we work, in the Nordics and elsewhere, they had, been looking at ways of potentially adopting more cloud-hosted solutions, but that comes with, certain risks in terms of security and compliance, similar to what we spoke about from before as well. So I think what they really tried to do was, identify potential solutions that would make them fully compliant, both with GDPR, NIS2, and other regulations that were coming across here in Europe as well. But at the same time, doing that in a way that is not compromising on the usability of the platform. So I think We're seeing that with a lot of others where it's a bit of, you need to juggle, obviously, finding solutions that are considered safe and legal, but at the same time, you don't want to disrupt sort of the end user experience in any way. So that's been a very interesting case to work on, and it sounds very similar to a lot of other ones where we're working on this topic from before as well. And I think from here on, we're going to hand it over to Marwan after we're doing this poll. So we're getting closer to Marwan and doing a bit of a live demo of the solution as well. A couple of votes coming in here, but I think we can almost move forward. Seems to be a pretty healthy combination of organizations using it. Some of them are not using it, and some of them as well are looking at alternatives of how to address this topic moving forward. I think we can move forward and hand it over to you from here on, Marwan.
Thank you. 3 of you have been teasing my presentation. I hope you didn't raise too much the expectations of the people. But basically what I'm here for, it was all nice, everything that Anton and both Michaels have shared, but we wanted to show you how this unified collaboration actually looks like, how Rocket.Chat, Pexip, and Collaboard allow you to align your teams, quickly share event details, coordinate, etc. Collaborate in real time with video calls, and brainstorm and ideate with whiteboarding. So the idea we chose in the light of the recent event is planning a party for our Danish friends and friends from Greenland. So we'll start by quickly sharing event details and coordinate logistics across Denmark and Greenland before initiating a video call to discuss plan and make faster informed decision. And lastly, spin up a whiteboard to visualize, refine, and perfect the event details. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I hope you're all able to see it. So from what you see here is Rocket.Chat. So this is the standard user interface of the platform with a few modifications that were done through this customized button right here, allowing you to really make the solution your own without having to dive into writing any codes or anything, directly from the user interface. And you might even see at the top this save your encryption password here, because we do support end-to-end encryption for your highly secure communication, ensuring that nothing, even if someone were to tap in, nothing will be shared. Of course, with the security that we put in place, nothing that's going to happen anytime soon. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and create a new room for me to communicate with my colleagues in the party planning committee. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new conversation right here, and I'll call it party planning. From here, I'll be able to specify a topic. So here I can say, so party for Greenland, and I can start adding my my colleagues. So I'll add Anton, add Michael, not good with my spelling, and the other Michael as well, and my colleague Pavi. You can see that you have a few options here available, such as making this channel private, basically making sure that no one in your workspace can access this conversation without being invited. And also some advanced settings such as federation for interoperability between Rocket.Chat workspaces and other compliant solutions, encryption, as we talked about before, and also read-only and broadcast options when needed. So we're going to leave it as standard for now and create the conversation. And I'm going to go ahead and send a message to all my friends so that we can start planning. As you can see here, the message is, team, we need to visualize key details for the Nordic gathering. And you'll see that immediately my colleagues are starting to reply. They could have replied directly in the chat, but they chose to reply in a thread directly through this button right here, which allows to retain a certain organization and avoid cluttering your conversation. So basically, it's just a sub-conversation within your room. And we can see that immediately messages start flying by. I can see that we're talking about the location, talking about food, not sure exactly what needs to be done here, but you know, so now I have only a few messages, but it could have been so much more. And in this case, we do provide AI actions that allow you to quickly summarize the messages that have been exchanged. I see that my colleague is typing, so I was just waiting for him to finish. And then from here, I can click summarize until here. So you can see that now the self-hosted AI engine is thinking and kind of creating a summary with key points and the summary in question, with also critical information and user interaction, making it easier to digest for everyone. This is particularly useful, you know, those moments where we go on holiday and we come back and we see like channels with hundreds of messages, or you've been in a meeting all day and you need to respond to some actions. Well, this is where this really comes into place. And the great things to keep in mind is all the data that is being used is hosted in your premises, so no data leakage, and the models can be enriched with your own information to make sure that the responses that the AI provides are aligned with your organization. So now I need to speak to my colleague about a specific topic, and I have multiple options here. I could start a simple voice call, dialing a colleague's extension, or directly selecting his profile and starting the call. But since here we are multiple people participating in this conversation, I thought it would be easier to simply start a video call through our Pexip integration. And I'm just going to click start video call, start call, and hand over to Michael.
Fantastic. I love when we get to the part of the demo that includes video conferencing. And hopefully my screen share will start to work any second now. And as I connect into this meeting that Merouane has set up, I can just simply, from the access of the channel, is simply click on to join the session. What will happen is that the Pexip video engine will start to activate, and I will come to what we call a pre-flight screen, which is to make sure that I have the right settings, the right configuration to join this session. As you can obviously see, I'm also connected into the webinar program, so I'm not going to use any cameras or change any of the devices too much. So I'll just connect into this gathering, and we're going to have a lot of friends here to talk about the planning for the party that we've got. I realize some of our friends probably don't like each other too much, so at some point we're going to have to separate them. But before we separate them, what I thought we could do is that we quickly use a new feature that's been released, which is called persistent chat. And this is able to chat with in the video window to the same participants. And you can see I have some connection issues, so hopefully this works any second now. And I'm just going to say, hi guys, let's take Trump into a separate room. So now we have agreed that we're going to send off some participants into some different rooms. What I can do is that I can click on the Pexip breakout room functionality, and then this will allow me to choose either automatically or manually how I would like to set up some rooms. So we're going to go with some automatic rooms, and I think that this breakdown looks quite good. We've managed to separate Denmark and Trump. So what we're going to do is that we're going to send everybody off to the different meeting rooms. As a host to this meeting, I remain in the lobby and I can choose where I would like to join. So let's just go and make sure that the Swedish chef and Trump, that these guys are getting along very nicely. So I'll quickly jump into their meeting room. And it looks like, yeah, the planning's going forward there. It looks like maybe some crayfish or something that chef is cooking up. And let's just go and check into the other room and make sure that everything's going along swimmingly here. And yeah, so far, so good. So what we'll do is that we'll close the meeting rooms. We'll bring everybody back to the main audience just to make sure that we've got them all in one place, and they should all start popping into the meeting now. Now that we've managed to separate everybody, we've managed to conclude on some of the initial planning. I think one of the things that we really need to get down to is making decisions. And in order to make decisions, we need to brainstorm and we need to work collaboratively in order to do so. So what I will now do is I'll move over to a Collaboard whiteboard session. So I'm prompted to log in, which I can very quickly just do with my Google authentication on the first approach. And then once I've logged in, I can go into manage an existing whiteboard. And this is not the wrong page. So here I come in existing whiteboards, and I think I found something pretty good here. So this should launch my whiteboard from within the Rocket.Chat application and the video meeting. And at this point, I'll hand over sharing and save some of my internet bandwidth for Michael to take us further.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael, also showing the nice transition from within the video chat, jumping on the whiteboard to visually collaborate together. So let me share my screen and we explore a little bit what we're going to do on the whiteboard for the party planning. So 1 second. So here we go. You should see my screen, and we also see Michael already joined our board. So Collaboard is a visual collaboration tool. So here you see the user interface and how everything is designed. And for the party planning, we have a few examples which we are going to check today. So the first one is we need to think about where to do the party in Greenland, right? So maybe there are some cool spaces. So we uploaded here a map, which is an image of the country. So in this case, now we can just move these points here and say, okay, let's do it in the national park. That's maybe a very good idea. Or as Michael is pointing out, here on top of Greenland, for example. Maybe it's very cold there, but could be a cool location to do some skiing and other activities. So one thing, another thing we do for the planning, which we have seen before. So in the call, we had maybe some people which we don't want to invite to the party. So what I did here is I uploaded a list of all the head of states and head of governments from the European countries. And as online whiteboard allows you to annotate and ink on all the things you upload. So for example, here you can easily just say, okay, let's invite them. Let's not invite him, for example. So in this case, we can also select here this table. And we can say, okay, maybe we need to think about if we want to invite this person or not. So let's make the row, for example, orange, and let's discuss once again. So here on the whiteboard, which is literally infinite, you can have a lot of lists and long data. So it's a very nice tool to visualize data. So we thought about where to do it. So we have a list of people to invite. Now, the biggest question maybe is, which foods do we serve? So we see here a table and 3 dishes. And what I will do now, I will bring everybody here directly to the place. and we start a voting session inside Collaboard. So there's integrated voting about the food to serve. We put a star rating, and now I need to enter it again, food to serve. We start the session, and all the attendees can now click here on the different dishes and provide feedback. So we will see now what we need to serve, if it's sweets, if it's smørrebrød or pilsner. So after the voting, we have a clear idea on what food to bring. And this shall give you the idea that when you're brainstorming an online whiteboard like Collaboard, you can get a feedback super quickly. And you don't need to spend a long time about discussing things. So you can take decision, even somehow a little bit automated. And in our case, let's just check which one has won. So we see, okay, I think smørrebrød won with 4.3 stars. So that's the main dish we're going to serve at our party. When we plan a party, or when you plan a party, usually you also need to think who is doing what. And maybe you have heard about methodology like Kanban. So here, this is just a template which we have added to that board. So we can easily move here now the sticky notes to the different columns, and then do really a sophisticated project planning directly on the whiteboard. And the cool thing is it's super visual, right? So it's not a long list in an Excel with tasks, so it's visualized, it's easy to grasp, and you can always access the whiteboard again and see this. So thank you, for example, for the idea not to invite Trump, and we will for sure consider this and cut him out of the list. So this is just another small use case on how to use the online whiteboard. And the last thing I would like to show you today, it's a brainstorming session. So let's think about which presents to bring to the party for Greenland. And what we have done here is we already added some sticky notes. So you can just click on the sticky note and people can start adding their ideas. So for example, I'm from Switzerland. I would, for example, bring some Swiss cheese. For example, we will bring some polar bears. And this is just a nice way of brainstorming. And you see, I already pre-prepared a lot of things on the whiteboard, because we know for many organizations, digital whiteboard is still something new. It's a new way of working digital. So in this case, if you have an experienced facilitator and if this person is preparing the board well, you can also start whiteboarding with people who have never used the tool before. So in the end, it's super intuitive, and you can almost start without any learning curve directly doing some things here. I'm a big fan of Tuborg beer. Sounds like a great idea, and also Swedish fika. We're looking forward to that. Yeah, cool. This was a short glimpse on a few use cases, what you can do with Collaboard. Of course, there's a lot more and a lot more features to explore. So, but we don't have the time for that today. So let me hand back to the presentation, as we have some other exciting news to share.
So before we go back to the presentation, thought I just gonna touch on the persistent chat that Michael mentioned earlier. So you saw that during the video call, we were able to exchange messages. I was even uploading a file right there. Well, the good thing is that even after the call is over, after I left the call, I can just come here, click join discussion, and immediately see the chat history. I can see the messages that were exchanged and even the documents. So really tying up this integration between the two solutions. So making it seamlessly or transition seamlessly between chat and video conferencing, and then from there to Collaboard as well. So really creating this with 3 different products, one single unified collaboration platform to cater for all your needs, whether it's from messaging, calling, or whiteboarding.
Great. That leads me to a call to action. So I see that we have many people joining here today that are either customers of Pexip or they're working with Pexip, Rocket.Chat, and Collaboard. If you are, we are hosting a fantastic event in Stockholm. It's our user forum. So here we gather all of our users where we talk about what are the trends within sovereign collaboration, how are they adapting to working towards this as well. It's usually a fantastic day, well attended, and so you'll see that there's a link to the registration page on the chat. So if you haven't registered already and you've liked what you've seen so far, you'll have the chance to meet with Pexip, you'll have the chance to meet with Collaboard and Rocket.Chat to discuss the integration around how all this works, the updates on the roadmap and everything that we're working on together as well. So we look forward to seeing you in sunny Stockholm on the 22nd of May. And we've got some time for some more questions. So shortly what you'll see popping up is a poll question. And either to join us at the user forum, what we would like to know is, would you like to know more about Pexip, Rocket.Chat or Collaboard solutions? Then please click the yes box. And if not, then please click the no box. And I'll click here. So I think we're seeing some answers hopefully coming in. 86% saying yes, so fantastic. And should we move over to questions if there's time left?
Perfect. I think that's a good idea. We have quite a lot of questions in the chat. I think Pavi and the team have done a great way of addressing a few of them. Arthur, great to have you here, first of all. I saw that you had a question earlier about having sort of a smooth transfer from the end users that are currently using Skype for Business and sort of migrating them over to Rocket.Chat, similar to what we have with Microsoft Teams and other solutions. For Skype for Business today, we don't have a direct bridge similar to that, but we do stay very sort of close and work sort of hand in hand with the organizations that are in this process. We do oftentimes, for instance, involve professional services, either directly, from the various organizations that are part of this call, or potentially through local partners that we have throughout the Nordics and rest of Europe, and more on a global scale as well. So the short sort of answer is no, but we definitely try to be there to make that a smooth transition, both for the users and sort of setting up, your single sign-on and everything, but also as it relates to setting up all of the infrastructure and deploying the solutions in the right way as well. And then just to finalize on that specific question too, I know you mentioned that the Microsoft Teams bridge as an example, where we do have direct integration for sort of cross collaboration across the platforms. And that is a very sort of relevant topic for all of us in today's call that we're addressing in different ways. So both through direct integrations with various providers. I know from Rocket.Chat's point of view as well, we heavily work on the Matrix protocol and having sort of open protocols to make it smoother for collaboration across different government agencies and other type of organizations as well. I think, Michael, you had maybe some question as well related to Pexip there. If you would want.
Yeah, I think this is about the recording. So there's a question there, can we support recording of the meeting? Yes, we do. We also work with a number of on-prem recording providers as well. So one of the things that we've seen is that, of course, if you're going to put your video and collaboration suite into a secure on-prem environment, the last thing you want to do is then make sure that all of the recordings are accessible by a public cloud and breaching all of the data privacy effort that you've gone to. So yes, we have available integrations with on-prem recording providers. One of the features that we have from Pexip as well is the ability to actually extract the presentation from the video feed. So we support two different types of protocols for recording. RTMP, which is the standard one, and RTMPS, which is where you can separate the presentation as well as the video and audio recording. Why that could be good is that in most cases you might want to do chapterization on different things across the presentation and have them in two separate windows for the person that's participating in the stream or the recording link.
Thank you, Michael, for answering this. Quick question also that was popped in regarding file sharing or file storage. So we do have integrations with solutions like Google Drive, etc. But knowing the context we're talking about, and from the polls, the first poll we did at the beginning of the session, most of us are working on-prem and would like to stay away from foreign cloud solutions. And therefore, with the Rocket.Chat, you'll be able to exchange email and store them in S3 buckets or even in your file storage. Multiple options are available to you depending on your specific requirements.
I've seen one question regarding Collaboard and if it's free to use together with Rocket.Chat. So there is a Collaboard plugin for Rocket.Chat. The plugin itself is for free, but you might need a Collaboard license that depends also on your requirements. We have different license tiers. So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out to me and I can tell you more about that. But the plugin itself, it's for free.
And one more question from Fatima. She's asking, how can we ensure the transfer of historical chat data are moved to Rocket.Chat if moving from an existing chat system? So again, favorite IT answer, it depends. But we basically offer multiple bridges and integrations with the main chat solutions such as Slack, Teams, etc. But we also have our dedicated professional services that can support you to migrate or support all your migration efforts on top of deployments and implementation if required. And I guess for the last question, asking if Rocket.Chat and Pexip are an alternative to Microsoft Teams. We like to think so. I think we offer quite a compelling offering here, especially for security-minded or highly regulated organizations. There are features specific to Microsoft Teams within the Microsoft ecosystem, such as the Office integration, etc., that can be done through third-party integrations within Rocket.Chat and Pexip. But besides that, I think most of the capabilities that Teams offers are matched and exceeded with these two platforms.
Yeah, I think just to maybe round off on that question as well, I think that's something we're hearing quite a bit because, as we've said, we work with a lot of organizations that might already have been moving over to cloud-based solutions in one way or another, but might have to sort of take a little bit of a step back, after potentially getting sort of some raised fingers from their legal and IT security team to a certain extent. But if it's something we hear a lot is that the organizations we're working with, they want a modern collaboration platform similar to Microsoft Teams, Slack, and others, but where they can maintain and have full control of all of that data. Of course, we have features and functionalities that they might and vice versa. But all in all, I think one sort of reason why we've been sort of a compelling alternative for this is the fact that we do provide a lot of the modern features expected from a collaboration platform in 2025, but we're doing it in a way that is data sovereign and where you have full control of the data at the same time to address the different compliance and security regulations that are important as well. I think that answers the majority of the questions that we've had for now. There might be a couple of outstanding that we have to go through here after the webinar and potentially get back to afterwards if we haven't had a chance so far. But I think all in all, that should cover most of it, unless the rest of the team here have anything else you want to address.
No, I think I just love that final question from Bernhard. Yes, is the answer. We are definitely an alternative to using Microsoft Teams. And I think as the team have already explained, I think one of the elements around the integration offering from both Pexip, Rocket.Chat and Collaboard is we want to understand your specific requirements and how we actually configure our solution to best match your requirements as well. So the flexibility from all sides points back to the reason what Michael talked about earlier around why we work together and that we all have a very common mission towards helping our customers with modernizing their collaboration platforms whilst keeping them secure and compliant. So I think that was a fantastic question to have at the end of this presentation, and a good sign that hopefully we've delivered some messaging on track towards that as well during the webinar.
Perfect. I think with that, we will start rounding things off here a little bit. And once again, extend a big thank you for everyone joining. We hope it was informative and helpful for everyone. We are more than happy, as we mentioned, to follow up on more questions and different type of conversations after this as well. You do have our contact information on the screen just right in front of you. We will also be following up with the recording after this as well. So once again, thank you to everyone for joining and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.